you are doing self prep, there are like two steps to it. The first step is to
Mhm.
know what to study. The second step is to execute it, right?
Mhm.
Uh, Given my work life and the time commitment that my work takes, I really didn't have that much time to do both of this. The pre-thinking part, when you read three sentences or four sentences that are there in pre-thinking, like sorry, in the critical reasoning passage, what pre-thinking does and it did for me is to, first step is, you retain a lot more when you read it for at one go. If you have gone through those exercises, if you read it in the right way, you can retain a lot more of that on your mind by reading it just once. Probability is something that you learn probably when you are in class 7 or 8, and I studied engineering. I even learned probability through my engineering days as well. But what is it that GMAT tests you on? Like, it's a huge
Mhm.
subject. What are the type of questions that they ask? What are they
Mhm.
trying to gauge?
Hi, Samarjit. Um,
Hey, Harashmi.
big congratulations on your recent 705, a brilliant 99 percentile score. So, today we are here to talk about that journey, right? So, how does it feel to be here? I know, uh, it was a sprint towards the end, given your work profile and all that stuff. So, how does it feel to be finally here? Relieved, happy?
Yeah, firstly, thank you so much for this opportunity. And yeah, it feels good to have a score above 700, bit relieved as well. I can focus on the next part of my applications now
Mhm.
without thinking about it. But again, like a lot of this is like thanks to you yourself and the rest of the mentors that are there. So yeah, overall, very happy about it.
Yeah, same here, same here. Congratulations again. So, Zamarjeet, we were just, discussing your journey. And one thing you mentioned that while, you started out at a 665 with e-GMAT, right? Uh, because you took the first diagnostic mock and that's where it was. But you did try your hand at self-prep, right? And then somewhere down the line, you figured out that maybe that isn't working for you. So, what were the challenges that you faced with self prep, and what made you seek out a course or some support to help you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and as you rightly said, I started out as a self prep strategy. Was probably in April or May this year,
Mm-hmm,
and I had my GMAT planned for July. So I
mm-hmm,
gave it a month or two. I tried, going through different forums that are there
mm-hmm,
on online, trying to solve different problems, buying a
mm-hmm,
few of those official books.
mm-hmm,
Um, but what really didn't work for me was that, like, if you are doing self prep, there are like two steps to it. The first step is to
mm-hmm,
know what to study. The second step is to, execute it, right?
mm-hmm,
Uh, Given my work life and the time commitment that my work takes, I really didn't have that much time to do both of these steps. So
mm-hmm,
figuring out the questions was become a thing for me. I would either take like do 10 very easy questions, which I would get a 10 on 10, or
mm-hmm,
take 10 very difficult questions and I would have
mm-hmm,
maybe get only 3 out of 10. So that didn't was not giving me the confidence to go and actually take that exam. And I also feel that I was kind of plateauing in that.
mm-hmm,
We mentioned I got 665 when I just started, so
mm-hmm.
kind of plateauing in that region, because
Got it.
whenever I used to do a set of 20 questions, I always used to get 4 or 5 incorrect out of those 20.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
So that was the reason I took that call, that because I am applying this year, so I didn't have a lot of time as well.
mm-hmm.
So let's give it to the experts to figure that the first part out. The second part I anyways have to do, I anyways have to execute on my own. And that, like, but yeah, that was the key reason why I sought help in that regard.
Mhm. Got it, got it. And I'm sure it must have been challenging to figure all this out when you have like a very, very busy work life also that involves extensive travels, right? Along with that, you don't want to sit down to prepare and think, oh, what do I do today? Or where do I get the questions from? Or what is the strategy that I need to follow? So then you've zeroed in on e-GMAT, right? Um, that you wanted a good service provider who will help you here. And the first thing you did, Samarjit, was take the mock to assess where you are at, right? And like we were discussing, three sections, three different kind of abilities, confidence, or whatever you call. So you want to tell us, like, once you took the mock, what was it that you felt was your biggest challenge to finally break out of that plateau and get to that 700 plus score? And what role did the study plan then play in really customizing your strategies across the three sections?
Yeah, I think, yeah, I'll just break that answer into two parts. So I gave the exam. By the way, I was very, in some way scared for giving before giving the
Mm-hmm.
mock, because I didn't know how well I'll do or how bad I'll do at it.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the reason why I pushed my GMAT a few times as well. But
Mm-hmm.
I just one day decided that I need to do this. If I have to do
Mm-hmm.
this, I gave it 665. I know. I think it was good because I knew where I was and where I want to be, and it was like, maybe a 50, 60 point difference from where I wanted to be at that
Mm-hmm.
point in time. And what e-GMAT does, or let's say the platform does, is it tells you how to exactly go about it,
Mm-hmm.
given the time commitment that you are,
Mm-hmm.
you can put in.
Mm-hmm.
And as you mentioned, the second part of your question, from a strategy perspective, I think, three different sections. I have, like, at that point, different abilities across these three sections. Uh, I would say, quant was something that I was confident that I know the theory of it. Of course,
Mm-hmm.
when you are actually doing the answers in a practical setting, might always make mistakes, and that's, you need to improvise on that.
Mm-hmm.
But I was confident that I know the theory part. I don't need to necessarily go, like, spend more time doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Verbal was the other way around. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I realized that the way of solving questions in verbal is like, takes a different strategy altogether. That's where, the platform kind of helped me the most.
Mm-hmm.
And then data interpretation, I would say it's somewhere in between the two. There's a amount of quantitative aptitude involved, but there is also an amount of understanding what the question is asking
Mm-hmm.
involved. Yeah. So that's what was it for me. And the platform kind of gave me suggestions according to my needs and my abilities. So
Got
that
it.
was good. Yeah.
Yeah, what you rightly said is like, for verbal, you needed a bit more comprehensive improvement. You had to work on your approach. You needed some, like, in critical reasoning, it could be pre-thinking, reading strategies in RC. So it needed a bit more comprehensive improvement. With Quant, it was more of practicing on good quality questions to really fine tune to ensure that you don't make a whole lot of mistakes and your timing is perfect, right? And data insights, on the other hand, you mentioned that you work with data in and out. So you know stuff there. What you really needed was, you know, get the experience of what the data insight kind of questions and the test feels like, right? So
Absolutely.
that's where, for our viewers also, Samarjit had a very, very customized plan wherein for verbal, he did the course, followed by cementing, that is practice, and for quant, though, it was just cementing and sectional marks, and for data insights, it was just sectional marks, right?
Yeah.
Now, coming to verbal, Samarjit, you said that for you was one of the bigger challenges when you did take the mock and you realized where your score is, which was a 70th percentile score. Not bad, but not good enough to help you get to your target, right? So take us through, what were the issues, because you had practiced earlier, and how did the course really help you overcome those challenges?
Yeah. I think the first thing is, the course tells you how to read a sentence. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the fundamental skill, which even I would say even beyond GMAT is going to help anyone
Mm-hmm.
who's trying to apply to a business school.
Mm-hmm.
Just if I can put it bluntly, right? That's a very good skill. You have
Mm-hmm.
to, even in my day job, I need to read. There are times where I have to read a whole lot of text in a much less time. So
Mm-hmm.
that skill is very, very important. So developing that skill was, I think, the very, very first step. And the
Mm-hmm.
platform, just starts from the very basic. Gives you a sentence. Of course, after you've gone through the video lectures, it probably would start by giving you a sentence and just asking you.
Mm-hmm.
If I have to give one example, there was this section where, you are given a sentence, and then you have to predict what comes after that.
Mm-hmm.
There are some quizzes around
Yes.
that. So that, I think, is a very, very, just as one example, a very, very core skill that I kind of honed through that. And then, of course, the practicing part also as well. And even the practice is not, you are not given the questions straight away. These are the questions that come in GMAT. you have to build your way to that. So and at every step, it really helps. So that was why where verbal, helped me even beyond, as I said, it's not only answering questions, but how to develop that habit of reading and kind of figuring out what whoever is the person who wrote the GMAT test, they are actually they actually want to test you on.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
that was really helpful for me.
Got it. Got it. Yeah. What you said is, if you don't understand what the author is telling you, how are you going to even go about solving the question, right?
Exactly.
Also, I know that for critical reasoning, you did the entire course, the pre-thinking approach. What was the value that uh, played in your CR?
Yeah, I think that's what I was saying. So the pre-thinking part, when you read three sentences or four sentences that are there in pre-thinking, in the critical reasoning passage, what pre-thinking does and it did for me is to, first step is, you retain a lot more when you read it for at one go. If you have gone through those exercises, if you read it in the right way, you can retain a lot more of that on your mind by reading it just once. So, your efficiency increases then and there. The next step is, while you're reading it, you kind of start thinking about, what are the potential pitfalls of the sentences.
Mm-hmm.
The
Mm-hmm.
author is saying that, A did B because of C, but what if this didn't happen? What would be the other thing? Things
Mm-hmm.
like that. It helps you critically evaluate each sentences as and when you're reading them, so you do not, as I said, you do not need to read them twice or thrice.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
that is good. And what it also does, and I mean, I have certainly benefited to this, is by the time you're done reading the passage, what are your thoughts? If you just note it down while reading it, you will realize that the answers are also, very well, like the answer choices are also very much aligned with that. And so that, if there's an answer, okay, this is not true because I had thought of it while reading that. So all in all, it kind of lets you predict what the question is
Mm-hmm.
going to be, what are the four possible answers to it, what is not right, what's a more appropriate answer. So yeah, that.
Got it. And I'm sure it helps to a large extent in reading comprehension also because,
First,
processing longer passages becomes easier when you are trying to preempt what the logic of the argument and all is, right?
yes.
So that's the approach that you took, right? You learned your processes. Then, of course, you did cementing. You worked on Scholaranium to now practice this under time setting. So that investment that you put in despite starting at a 70th percentile in verbal of really building your ability from foundation up. How important do you think it was to finally get you in?
Yeah, I think it's quite a lot of improvement. So when I started with the 70th percentile, I just want to kind of point it out. It was not that I just got up one day and I gave the test and I got a 70th
Mm-hmm.
percentile. It was, I was
Mm-hmm.
trying to prepare for quite a long time, and that's where I was kind of plateauing at that level. So that
Mm-hmm.
was so it was not a starting point. It was a point where I was kind of stuck, if I may put it in that way. So and at that point, I think what's required is to change some of the fundamentals, or like the
Mm-hmm.
way that you are solving the problem. So
Mm-hmm.
at that point, I don't think it's only about practicing. If you are at the 70th percentile, if you practice 10 more questions, you won't go to 88 percentile. You have to
Mm.
figure out what's wrong.
Yes.
That's where I think the platform again help. Like, if you get an answer wrong, or even if you get it right, the next page on the platform is, a solution to that, along with the four answer choices, telling you why answer A is correct or why answer B is wrong. So even if you're wrong, you can certainly go and check that. Even if you're correct, you can kind of check whether the reason you are correct is the reason why it actually should be correct, and
Mm-hmm.
whether or not was it a fluke, or you get to know the real thing. So that also
Mm-hmm.
helped me a lot from like getting from the 70th to the 90th percentile.
Yeah, that's true. I think uh, it sort of predictably, replicably put you in that 90th percentile kind of a bracket. Finally, you were able to get out of that score rut that you were in when it comes to
Exactly.
Virgin, right?
Exactly.
With Quant summary, the strategy was again different. That's what we said. You knew, concepts. Your concepts were strong. You also knew how to solve a question. So we did not need to go back to the drawing board for Quant at all. What you essentially did here was practice on the Scholaranium through cementing quizzes um, under time setting to really fine tune your, approach, and maybe through solutions learn whatever little was to be learned. So tell us how this strategy panned out and how um, you know that practice on Scholaranium questions, how that really helped you get to that near perfect 88 in one.
Yeah, and as you rightly mentioned, Quant, I was more confident, maybe a bit too overconfident as well when I had started. That
Mm-hmm,
I know everything. Probably there's nothing new in terms of concepts for me to know. But that's when I started giving the Scholaranium quizzes. That's when I realized that it's not really the case, and that happened because like I remember the first time I took the test. I couldn't complete the section in the
mm-hmm,
given
mm-hmm,
time frame, right? That's when I realized, I just might have to take half a step back, and that's where I did the cementing. So the cementing was not the first thing that I did, but I kind of took a step back. I did the cementing for all the sections so that I can kind of get one
mm-hmm,
section right. And
mm-hmm,
then I think the biggest help for me was to know what are the type of questions that are going to be
mm-hmm,
asked, right? So, for just to take another example, like probability. Probability is something that you learn probably when you are in class 7 or 8, and I studied engineering. I even learned probability through my engineering days as well. Right? But what is it that GMAT tests you on? Like, it's a huge
mm-hmm,
subject. What are the type of questions that they ask? What are they
mm-hmm.
trying to gauge? That you get to know if you do the cementing quizzes, because
Sure.
there's like a set of questions which are uh, taken from the exact same pattern where what
Mm-hmm,
GMAT tests you on. So it gives you a okay, this is what I need to know within probability. This is these are the formulas that I always have to keep in mind when a question starts like this is what they're trying to
mm-hmm,
check. And also the edge cases, right? There's always one of those questions. I think it's more relevant for number properties, that there's always that one edge case that's always there. So the number you get, if your answer is 13, most likely the right answer is either 12 or 14, because there's one edge case that you will have to
mm-hmm,
consider, which you
mm-hmm,
wouldn't if you are overconfident and just calculate the answer and just put that and
mm-hmm,
go
mm-hmm.
ahead. So that's where quant preparation really helped me, is to kind of like as I said, right, put me to a position where I was able to answer the question in the way the test
Yeah.
makers meant for it to be answered.
Got it, got it, got it. So I think you solved what around 500 questions on
Yeah,
Scholaranium with brilliant stats, right? And that sort of, yes, helped you revise, helped you get those outliers that you needed to build up on, and also manage your time well, right? From a
yeah,
person who found it difficult to complete the test, I'm sure you managed it pretty well on the test. With data insights now, Samarjeet, uh, two things happened. A, you're already good with data because that is your bread and butter. That's what you do a day in and day out. The second thing is also that towards the end, you hardly had any time. So that's where I think in data insights, you took sectional mocks, right? So tell me what was your, this is a new thing that we've just started, the sectional mocks, right? So uh, what's your feedback on them? How do they help you actually prepare for the test?
yeah. No, I think, oh, I didn't realize it's a new thing, because I think this has to be the thing, between from my experience. And the reason I say that is, again, tying back to a point which we made before. If someone has a limited amount of time,
Mm-hmm,
and you want to get the most out of that time, I think that's the place to go, because
mm-hmm,
it gives you a curated set of questions. You don't need to worry about, are there enough questions from this section, are there enough questions from
mm-hmm,
that section, are there enough hard questions, are there enough medium questions. Don't need to worry about that. Just go in, spend the time that it's a timed exam, so you spend
mm-hmm,
that required amount of time, do your questions, get your feedback, maybe note it down or whatever the process is, and then do it again, right? So
mm-hmm,
that's the best way, like for me. And as you mentioned, for data insights, towards the end we only had a couple of days to revise that. uh, so the best way I thought is to just let's go there, let's see what are the questions that are being asked, what type
mm-hmm.
of strategies should I have for those questions, and yeah, that was short.
Yeah, that played out well with the
Yeah, I'm
DAD3,
glad.
right?
I did.
Yes, yes. So, how confident were you, Samarjit, when you went to take the test? Were there
Uh,
nerves, jitters? This is your first GMAT attempt. I know you've taken GRE earlier, but you know.
so to be honest, it was kind of a mixed feeling for me.
Mm-hmm,
On one hand, I was like, although I felt that I was well prepared, but I didn't have time to take a full length test. Like
mm-hmm,
the only one I took was the one that taken before I started the preparation, right? So I didn't have any idea about the score that I'm going to get in the end. But of course, in terms of fundamentals, I knew that I had taken enough quant
mm-hmm,
sectional tests to know that my scores were kind of between I would say Q85 to Q90.
mm-hmm,
I probably I was not expecting a Q90 at that time because I mean, you can always get a question wrong and fall
mm-hmm,
below. But I was there in that ballpark. For verbal, I just felt like I've prepared enough. I don't really know how much I'll score, but it will certainly be better than where I was before. Data insights, and as we just discussed, I was just kind of living up to fate because.
mm-hmm,
But looking back, I think the score is it's a good score. And a lot of it is not fate, right? A lot of it is
mm-hmm,
because of the targeted preparation that of course I executed that preparation, but in terms of me being able to execute it to the best of my ability, I
mm-hmm,
think the platform
mm-hmm.
was key. Yeah.
See, I think one beautiful thing that you said is you did not take mocks at all. So, you know, to be able to understand where you are at before the test is one critical aspect, right? But you did not have time. But the fact that you had taken these quizzes, these metric-driven quizzes, and the mocks, sectional mocks, meant that while you did not have the overall picture when it comes to each of the sections, you knew that you were already there, right? So it is not critical that you take a ton of marks to be able to get a good score. If, as you rightly said, if you execute a structured plan, which is data driven, metric driven, then you are there, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's that's very good. Now, Samarjit, coming back to the things that we were discussing, I know you started the prep in August, then you went off traveling for a month and a half because of the kind of job role that you have. Even the days were quite busy. So, and a lot of our students are working professionals. Most of the GMAT takers, I would say, are working professionals, and it is challenging to balance prep with uh, a busy work life. So, uh, any tips that you have that could help them balance it better?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think there are a few things. Yeah, as you rightly mentioned, I think I started preparation sometime in the mid of August.
Mm-hmm,
So I had about 15-20 days before I knew that I'm not going to be there for the month of September and for half of October as well.
mm-hmm,
Um, so first thing is, you need to realize, you have an honest assessment of, how much time you have.
mm-hmm,
That I think is like the first step.
mm-hmm,
There is no point overestimating things that, although I know that I can only give in 1 hour, there's no point thinking that, maybe I can squeeze in 2 hours or 3 hours every day. So having
mm-hmm,
that honest assessment is like the first step. And once you have that honest assessment, and I'm just taking e-GMAT as an example, you can actually put in those numbers into that calendar when you start your preparation. So it tells
mm-hmm,
you how to it gives an indication of how to schedule things. But of course, I think between us we had conversations even beyond that as well, right? Like what works best for me. Although I had a plan there, but sometimes it's not very possible to follow that. So we had conversations on how to kind of go about it, like how to tweak it
mm-hmm,
or personalize it as per my convenience. So how I did it was before I went out, I completed the verbal, the the main like the mastering comprehension,
mm-hmm,
those kind of courses before I went out because I knew those would take time. That requires you to spend a lot of time at one sitting while you're doing it. So better do it when you have time versus thinking that you'll do it later on.
mm-hmm,
But once those were done, and to be told, I didn't have a lot of time at all to kind of
mm-hmm.
do it. But that's where the other parts of my practice sessions, which was the scholarly name, just practicing the sectional mocks, you don't really require a lot of time for that. I mean, would require maybe 30 minutes at a time to
Mm-hmm,
go
mm-hmm,
through a sectional mock, right? So
mm-hmm,
whenever I had time, let's say maybe you know any time in the day, just take out that 30 minutes, take out that 40 minutes, and give a sectional mock, see where you are,
mm-hmm.
and don't judge yourself by looking at that result itself. I think it's a marathon. It's not a
Yes.
race. So that is there. And I think being consistent with it. So it's not, of course, like once you are preparing, if you have a week, give everything in that week. So don't think I'll do it on Monday and then maybe on Saturday, Sunday I'll make up for
Mm-hmm,
that. So because that also doesn't work. Fortunately for me, like again, like repeating the same points, a lot of this planning happens on the platform, so you don't need to worry about that.
mm-hmm.
You can just worry on the executing part. So that really helps.
Got it, got it. Have a robust plan. Ensure that when you have time, you make the most of it,
Exactly.
and then stay consistent. Right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Got it. That's very well said. And effectively, if we look at it, your journey has been a month, right? So this whole transformation has happened in a month. But also the thing is, even when you are in a break, you did not completely cut off from GMAT. You, as you said, just stay in touch, right? That is critical. So I'm very glad that we are having this conversation now. In the first attempt
Likewise.
itself, you
Yeah.
got to this score. So congratulations again, Samarjit, and thank you so
Thank
much for taking the time out on your weekend to help us with this video debrief. So I want to wish you all the very best. I know you
thank
have
you.
a busy application season coming up. So all the best and see you at the other end. Thank
Thank you,
you.
Rashmi. Thank you so much. And again, thanks to the entire team of e-GMAT who are kind of doing this wonderful work. And I really hope that more and more people realize like the importance of it, and they kind of get good scores. Yeah.
Yes, fingers crossed. Thank you
Thank you.
so much and all the best.
You're
Bye
welcome.
bye.